welcome to a new week. Good morning and welcome to about 55 minutes of current and relevant business conversations packaged in Business Morning here on Channels Television. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Let's start that journey with what's going on in the global oil space. Futures jumped today with Brent rising above $120 a barrel. And that's after Saudi Arabia hiked prices for its crude sales in July, signaling tight supply even after OPEC Plus agreed to accelerate output increases over the next 2 months. Brent crude was up 91 cents to $120.63 a barrel. Or US West Texas Intermediate crude futures was up 93 cents at $119.80 a barrel, and that's earlier it hit a 3-month high of $120.99 a barrel. Saudi Arabia raised the official selling price for its flagship Arab Light crude to Asia to $6.50 premium versus the average of the Oman and Dubai benchmarks from a $4.40 premium in June. Well, let's head back to Nigeria now. If you've been following our news here on Channels Television, we've been doing a review of democracy, celebration of democracy in Nigeria now. Going to the economy now, in the past 12 months, global economy was supposed to be recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic, but it's been hit by consequences of the Russian invasion in Ukraine. Nigeria, of course, has felt this pinch in many, many ways. One of it has been the threat to food security, especially the supply of grains. But the country also has its own internal economic struggles, which have only been emphasized by the war. When I put together this report to capture some of the high points of the economy in Nigeria in the last 1 year. From 0.51% in the first quarter of 2021, an obvious recovery from COVID-19 pandemic shot the gross domestic product up to 5.01%, mostly base year effect. As the effects subsided, GDP balanced and settled at 3.11% for the first quarter of 2022.
If you take agric and petroleum and refining, those sectors are in recession because they've actually contracted consistently for a period. But what saved the day was manufacturing, construction, air transportation. Road transportation fell from +30 to -20. So road transportation contracted by 50%. It's not difficult to find out or to analyze that. Kidnapping, price of diesel, transportation costs, logistics, all out of the roof. Air transportation increased, but it's not going to drop sharply in the second quarter because of aviation fuel at 700. Now, one sector that is quite interesting is rail. Rail grew fast in first quarter. It grew by almost significantly. But after the Kaduna event, rail has crashed.
Other important conversations have been on foreign exchange policy, especially with the ban of sale of FX to Bureau de Change in July 2021. Further factors have led to a continuous drop as the Naira, which exchanged for a dollar at about 412 Naira in the I&E window and 475 Naira in the parallel market in May 2021, currently stands at about 610 Naira a year after in the parallel market, while the I&E window has hardly changed.
When you talk about the value of your currency, it's a function of how effective you are in the global market from the point of view of exports and how you are also able to minimize imports. And all of these things are functions of the productivity in the economy.
Manufacturers, who are one of those directly affected by this, believe that the investors and exporters window and parallel market should have a meeting point.
The reality is that we're all sitting here, most of the manufacturers, big and small, have already priced in these figures we don't like talking about, parallel market. The question is, when is the government going to be bold enough and just narrow this thing into one single digit? Because we're literally penalizing the economy.
Another area is the continuous surge of inflation, which has become a global trend, hinged mostly on the spillover of the war in Ukraine. In Nigeria, inflation went from 17.93% in May 2021, dropped to 15.4% in November 2021 after tapering for 8 times. It surged in December to 15.63%, a trend which has continued, boosted by rise in food and energy prices, and pushed inflation to 16.82% in April 2022.
Well, we'll take some questions.
This was a major consideration at the May MPC, where the monetary policy rate was hiked for the first time in about 2 years, from 11.5% to 13%.
MPC decided on the need to take a shift from its historically cautious approach on interest rate to a policy rate hike, while still adopting an accommodative approach to development finance initiatives that have helped historically the growth of the Nigerian economy and sustained a recovery.
As the nation prepares for the 2023 general elections, political activities, especially spending, which may continue to stoke inflation, must be factored into the outlook for the rest of the year. The threats to food security, as well as warnings such as that from the International Monetary Fund that except something is done, Nigeria may be servicing its debts with 100% of its revenue by 2026, are tasks awaiting the country's leaders that will succeed the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. That's right. One of those factors driving inflation, high in prices of food and energy. We will settle with energy for this conversation. The United Kingdom High Commission has estimated climate-smart investment potential in Nigeria, particularly in the renewable energy sector, is worth over $104 billion. Another area of potential in Nigeria. Since Nigeria is blessed with abundant renewable energy resources, such as hydroelectric, solar, wind, tidal, and biomass, well, there's a need to harness these resources. Can we have an area where we're not just talking about resources? Well, to join us for that conversation, joining us in the studio, we have Afolabi Akinrogunde, investment manager at All On Partnerships for Energy Access. He shares his thoughts on this. Good to speak to you, Afolabi. Good morning.
Pleasure to be here.
So, I mean, when we sit here in Channels Television, have a lot of conversations, whether it's business, economy, you know, and even other areas, we talk about potentials, and sometimes it just breaks one's heart because we just keep hearing of potential that's not harnessed. Now, we have another potential in renewable energy, especially at this time. The world is talking about renewable energy, trying to wean themselves off Russian, oil and gas and looking to clean energy. Unfortunately, we can't tap into that. We see oil is over $120 now. But from your perspective now, from your interaction, how much penetration of renewable energy do we have in Nigeria at this time?
At this time, it's very low, very, very low. I would wager much less than 4%. It's very low. It's growing. It was, I think I'd say it's probably more than doubled in the last 5 years. So there's a lot of growth. There are a lot of work. Good work has been done by various agencies of the government, the REA, especially the NERC. Nigeria has some of the most progressive policies in terms of facilitating the growth of energy access, renewable energy in the developing world. Some countries actually come here, funnily, to actually come and learn and see how we do things. However, because the scope is so low, there's so much more that can be done.
What's stopping the growth?
The growth is, there's a lot of education that needs to be done. There's also quite a lot of integration that also needs to be done. A lot of agencies are doing different things. You need to have quite a bit of integration to ensure that coordination to ensure that some of these good ideas actually get passed down to the final user. For example, you find out that some agencies of government, like the Ministry of Finance, has a lot of policies which enable it cheaper to bring in solar components into the country. However, you have other entities like Customs, which also has a target from the president to make money. So you have so there's that need to actually integrate and coordinate and ensure that everybody is singing from the same song sheet, so to speak.
I guess this feed into what we hear of that it is very capital intensive. All of this feed into it. So if we really want to deal with the penetration and the issue of being capital intensive, we have to handle some of these things you have mentioned.
Yeah, we have to do that, and we also have to handle some of the microeconomic challenges. For example, you discover that the cost of until of course we start having the supply chain issues, well, with COVID, you find out that the cost of every component has dropped significantly. Panels has dropped more than 90% in the last 20 years, cost of panels. But you find out that
there's been more supply?
Yeah, because technology is improving, people are getting better at it, it's getting cheaper, it's getting faster, it's getting easier to make.
And there are more alternatives.
And there are more alternatives. But you're finding out that we're not able to benefit from these jobs because the Naira keeps losing value, for example. So you find out that, yes, even though it's 40% cheaper, a battery, a panel is 40% cheaper than it was in 2020 and 2017. But because your currency has also lost value, you're also not able to benefit from and tap into those price drops. So those are some of the challenges which the sector is going through.
Yeah, well, a wide range of it. Well, now the UK Commission is saying that the sector is worth over $104 billion. Where is this value? What part of it is it?
No, it has the potential to get there. We have a significant power poverty situation in Nigeria. For example, the average Nigerian gets 40 times less power than the average South African, and we are all in Africa, and South Africa has issues. The average Nigerian gets about 12 to 15 times less power than the average Ghanaian, just two countries across our border there. So to show you that where we are is actually...
And I've read a couple of places that we do sell energy to some other countries.
There are strategic reasons behind that. If you're using...
But Nigerians are never happy. I mean, I don't care how strategic it is. I mean, how do you sell what you don't have enough of at home?
There are all sorts of reasons around that. I wouldn't want to get into the logic behind that, because if you're doing something with a river and people are affected downstream of that river and all of that, you have to also...
you have to compensate.
You have to help out and all that. But the key thing really is that as long as we are able to integrate, as long as we are able to actually do what needs to be done at the macro level, because people say, oh, we are paying more, for example, for power. I know it was 20 naira per kilowatt hour in 2012 and 2010. 12 years ago, and it's 58 naira per kilowatt hour.
Subsidy is off for electricity now.
Yeah, but you find out that 20 naira you were paying per kilowatt hour in 2010 was actually maybe 16 cents per kilowatt hour, and the 58 naira you are paying per kilowatt hour today is actually about 10 cents. So, and the power companies, except the human beings that work there, every cost they have is in dollars. Even the gas that they use is priced in dollars and then converted into naira. So everything is in dollars. So you find out that we need to also have quite a lot of macroeconomic stability for us to be able to actually tap into and benefit from this. Because no matter what happens, it continues to be a situation where you are chasing along with the things happening in the market.
So everything ties to the value of naira, the productivity, just as we saw in that report, the productivity of the economy, and then of course the value of naira will also affect every other thing that we can't seem to run over.
But there are other things we can also do. We can also do, for example, work towards domesticating as much of that value chain in country as is possible. For example, no need to brag. What we do, what we at Allon do, we are investors in a company called Oxano, which basically is the premier assembler of battery of panels in Nigeria. So basically, you are domesticating. So effectively, your panels are 10, 15, 12% cheaper.
Yeah, but how much confidence do we have in local production? That's another thing. If you want to talk of batteries, I mean, for a lot of people who do solar and all, you want to talk of battery. There's so many fake batteries out there that you buy. It doesn't last for a month or so. You know, so when you now tell somebody, oh, come and do the locally made batteries or panels, I mean, there's a lot of work to be done to win back confidence of Nigerians.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, it's got to be a journey. Toyota was, I was young enough to know that Toyota wasn't a great brand in the 70s. You get me? Toyota, Hyundai wasn't a great brand in the 90s. I think all of us are old enough to know. We know where Hyundai is today. They are competing almost neck and neck with the great company. So you have to start somewhere. You have to start somewhere. You have to buy local. And we also have to ensure that our regulatory bodies are doing their jobs. Like the biggest thing, the biggest challenge anywhere in this country is that the rules of the road are not being enforced. You need to ensure that, and for example, there was an announcement a few weeks ago that the SON recently announced that they have a new center for them to check and ensure that the standards of panels and batteries that are bought in country are worked. That is a step in the right right
you know, a lot of
direction.
people have been putting knocks on Standards Organization. I think I'll just use the opportunity to say Standards Organization of Nigeria. We do need to speak to you here on Business Morning because when we talk about commodities, we talk about exports. We even talk about local consumption and building the confidence of Nigerians. It all ties back to the regulator, and the major regulator we do have NDLEA and all that. But when we talk about things like that, we're talking to Standards Organization of Nigeria. So Standards Organization of Nigeria, we do need you to come on Business Morning to tell us some of the new policies that you have and how you're winning the confidence of Nigerians, you know, to patronize and consume locally made products and commodities. We'd like to host you very soon on the program. You know, so apart from this, we do have some private sectors who try to make it easy on Nigerians. So you say, they say they will install for you, you pay 50%, and then you spread the rest over. Is that helping? Because even with that, some of the costs there are really high. They're really high.
Yeah, the challenge, for example, I had solar in my house about a year and a half ago because it was clear that you can't be in this space and not have
an alternative.
And my cost has gone down significantly, but the challenge always remains the change costs, because however good a product is, if you don't have the funds to tap into it, it's just good. You can't enjoy it. So what needs to be done is for the financial institutions, quite a few of them, I think Sterling Bank, a few other FCMB, a few other banks are doing good work in this regard. We have quite a few DFIs. BOI has also done quite a bit of work, but we need to have, as much as possible, an integrated approach towards ensuring that the middle class, lower middle class, begin to have access to these products, because it's clear that if you continue to wait for the grid, you know, 3.5 gigawatts is what we presume. There are some mid-sized cities which like 1 million people, which consume much more than what 200 million of us are sharing in this country. So there's a long way to go.
Yeah, but I mean, that long way seems really long, because even when you have the solar, it cannot power some things. I mean, if you really need to get solar, for instance, that will take care of your freezer, take care of your microwave, you know, those heavy equipment in the house, then, I mean, you really have to look very far. You have to spend a lot of money.
Yes, you will have to spend some money, and I believe that there's also spaces where technology is also catching up. You have, so for example, inverter ACs, which are available now, which are also cost competitive. You have even ovens, even microwave ovens, which can work with it. So the key thing really is the changeover cost, getting that on. So if you can have people, and that's what happens in many other parts of the world, where you have, but when it's easy for you, you know, buy a car, pay over 2, 3, 4, 5 years. You know, in Nigeria, you do everything at once for yourself. You buy a car, take your money to beggar or whatever, and buy that car. There's no buy now, pay later culture.
Then we'll go to the conversation of data and credibility.
And all of that.
You know, and measuring credit and all that. But how much of this can manufacturers really need high power? How much of these can they use? How much power from solar, from the wind, can they use on their machineries for production and all?
I think a better way to approach it would be to look at what can be done for the middle class, for small businesses, for homes.
Before we go
If you can take those people off the grid, if you can push them onto this technology such that within a year and a half, this equipment pay for themselves, and you're using free power, more or less. You're not paying 5K or 10K a month or whatever it is you're paying. And then you will then find out that it's going to be a lot easier for the industries which need this heavy equipment to then be on stream. Of course, you can also have a situation where you can also integrate renewable energy into your national power infrastructure, such that you now have 2%, 3%, 5% of your grid power being supplied via this means. So there are various ways of going about it.
All right. Okay. Well, we do hope to take this conversation further to another level and not just talk about potentials, you know, but actually the actualization of some of this potential. Thank you so much, Afolabi Akinrogunde, Investment Manager at All On. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us.
Sure.
So we'll take a break now. After the break, we'll look at an industry which you may have overlooked. It's worth $510 billion. We'll be having a conversation with someone who has made good in that industry, and that's Jumoke Dada, founder of Taylor Furniture. She will be joining us from Manchester to have that conversation. That's after the break. Join us there. You're welcome back. Well, the global market value of furniture was estimated to be $509.8 billion in 2020 and expected to increase every year to reach a forecast value of approximately $650.7 billion in 2027. Let's come back home in Nigeria. That industry is estimated to worth $510 billion. And another area that seems to be undertapped, as a lot of Nigerians seem to have more confidence in imported products. But we do have someone there who's been celebrated in Nigeria for making the most of the needs in that industry and with local homemade raw materials. We have Jumoke Dada, founder of Taylor Furniture. Hi, Jumoke. Good to see you. Good morning.
Morning. So glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. Well, you've been applauded for making the most of local raw materials and local needs. Tell us, what do you experience in that space? It's valued at about $510 billion. Is it worth that much, or is it worth much more?
For me, I think it's worth that much. You know, understanding that, you know, in this part of the world, they don't get to produce anything. You know, for me, from what I see, when you talk about furniture, it's still seen as something for the elite, not for everyday people. So even people that are bottom of the pyramid don't have access to good furniture, they see it as luxury. So the opportunity is still there, yet untapped, you know, for even average Nigerian to be able to buy furniture pieces and all of that. Yeah.
So is it true to say that a lot of Nigerians lack confidence in Nigerian-made products, at least in that space?
I don't think it's lack of confidence in Nigerian-made products. I just think it's the fact that they are not able to find affordable first, then well-made furniture pieces locally, right? Because if you look at it, when you're trying to get furniture for an average Nigerian, what comes to your mind first is that I would rather go to my carpenter because the furniture shops are so expensive, right? And that's the market Taylor serves at the moment, yeah? So it's really not around not having confidence in local brand, but it's just more or less around, you know, people don't have that convenience when it comes to buying furniture, basically.
So why are you guys so expensive, Jumoke?
No, we're not. We're not. So we're table going for 29,000 naira. That's super affordable for an average Nigerian. Funny enough, most of our customers are millennials, Gen Z, right? So if millennials, Gen Z can afford to buy a tailor piece, I don't think it's expensive.
But how much of local raw materials do you use?
Yeah, for a bulk of it, like wood and all of that, although some of the materials we still use maybe imported by some suppliers. But like I've been telling people of late, you know, Africa, especially Nigeria, has the potential to be the next China. The only place where we have to put a bit of effort will be in terms of technology, right? Because if we have that technology locally to be able to harness even most of the resources that we have, then I think we should be able to sustain ourselves, you know, in that aspect.
Yeah, well, we seem to have a lot of areas where we should be able to sustain ourselves, but we have a lot of hurdles that has stopped us from maximizing those. Is there anything you think can be put in place to accelerate growth, that where we can become self-reliant, you know, in wood, in raw materials, in production, in manufacturing?
I just feel like someone needs to show that, you know, it's possible. And I feel like that's what Taylor is doing as a brand. You know, we've we've shown people that it's possible. Even during COVID, when a lot of people couldn't like go out, brands like Taylor were selling thousands of pieces of furniture to consumers. And when people like us show that it's very possible, then we'll be able to like attract proper capital to be able to invest in technology, to be able to grow production and grow all of those aspects. Manage supply chain and create systems that allow our supply chain to be well structured to meet local demands. And I feel like that's it, because right now most furniture brands just focus on furniture as a luxury, not furniture as everyday thing.
Yeah, talking about supply chain, COVID-19 brought a lot of disruption to supply chain, and now we have the war going on in Ukraine. How much of a disruption has that brought to the furniture space?
I would say in terms of materials, yeah, because now, you see a lot of suppliers trying to hold materials because, they don't know what might happen, So when it comes to materials, because even some of these materials have been imported from maybe Europe and China and some of these places, yeah, a little bit of destruction, but you still have like materials coming in, it's just a matter of you trying to stock as much as possible for you to be able to like survive during the like whole period, yeah.
Yeah, well, we did have that conversation with the manufacturer last week. Now, an interesting thing, we had a conversation here some weeks ago about metaverse in SME operations and creating memorable shopping experience. And it seems the future is here, already.
Yeah, technology has a huge role to play. Luckily, like brands like Taylor are like one of the first guys like doing that in this part of the world. For instance, Taylor didn't start up trying to open huge showrooms, right? From day one, we've always embedded technology in whatever we do at Taylor. So for instance, we have things like augmented reality that can allow you like embed the pieces in your space real time. So that way you don't even have to visit a showroom, to buy furniture, But things like virtual reality is already like here, like people use it, although like the adoption is really slow because a lot of people don't know about it and the fact that, okay, they have to use headsets. But I feel like right now, like the time is now, right? We've got into an era where people literally don't even have to step out of their homes to buy furniture pieces. Gone are the days where you invest in massive showrooms. Even big brands outside Nigeria like IKEA and all of that are trying to invest in smaller pocket spaces as against having that huge warehouse boxes, right? And that's what technology can do, shrink that huge massive space into like a VR headset. So.
But how affordable and accessible is this technology we're talking about? These are part of the reason why Nigerians will go to their furniture or be their carpenter down the road and tell them to do a chair or a table for them, because some of these things just feed into the costs.
No, it doesn't, to be honest. For example, if you use things like augmented reality that kind of allow you to embed the furniture pieces in your space real time, you're not buying a VR headset, right? All you're just doing is go to the company's website or the brand's website and click view in 3D, right? And you can get to see it in your space real time. It doesn't cost you anything to do that. I think the issue here is adoption, and a lot of people don't know about it yet. In developed countries, brands like maybe huge brands like Nike and some of these guys are already doing it. People already use augmented reality,
Well, you need to buy the skills. At least you buy the skills. At least you buy the skills. If you don't buy anything, you get the skills, the personnel.
Yeah, but I don't think that's like a huge cost. I think the cost from that is even less significant to what like the Nigerian economy is doing to manufacturing businesses. So yeah.
All right, for you now, what can we do in that industry? Especially you're a young person and you've been successful there. You've made your mark. We're talking of unemployment in Nigeria now. We're talking of where we can attract more, because if you're talking of technology, metaverse, or whatever new thing we want to bring there, it's mostly the Gen Zs and, the young people that would bring those ideas and sustain it. How do we attract them there? Because when you talk about issues of capital, to start this acquiring skills, how do we attract them into this space so that we can actually sustain this technology and ICT in the furniture sector?
From what I've seen in my years of being a creative person and in my years of being a business person, one of the major problems creatives in Nigeria face is they have all these nice things in their head that they want to do, but it's very hard to implement them. It's very hard to build them. You know, part of the things we're doing at Taylor, for instance, is to have a program for creators, which is like Taylor for Creators, whereby creators can go ahead and maybe, for instance, dream of anything they want to dream of. And, you know, we can help them maybe fabricate and do all of those things, you know, bring all the ideas to reality. Because for the tech bit, anybody can do that from the convenience of their homes, but bringing all those things to life, you know, requires maybe people who have a bit of expertise in that area. For example, a brand like Taylor who can help fabricate all of those things. Because I feel like the creative potential is there. You have like people who can do that, but the issue is it's hard producing in Nigeria. I don't have money to set up a factory. I don't have money to do this and all of that. And most times creative people don't really want to get boggled with the whole idea of trying to manage the hassles that come with production or supply chain, right? So I feel like brands like Taylor, for instance, you know, can help a lot of creatives, you know, tap into that potential that they have and bring most of their ideas to life.
All right, Jumoke Dada, founder of Taylor Furniture, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us this morning.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Good to have you. Well, from furniture to the markets, that's about another market. But let's do a review of how the markets ended last week, the various markets. Let's start with the money markets. Now, in the money markets, we see that the overnight rate dipped significantly by 700 basis points week on week to close at 7% on the back of higher system liquidity. The average liquidity level for the week settled at 312.07 billion. That's against 12.96 billion in the previous week, as inflows from FARC disbursement, which was $400 billion, and OMO maturities, which was 62.69 billion, outweighed debts for CRR, OMO, and FX auction. And last week we did see that Nigeria's reserve sustained its descent for the 5th consecutive week. And so sad to see that, and that's in spite of increase in oil prices, decreasing to its lowest level since the 8th of October 2021. Precisely, the reserves declined by 58.90 million week on week and settled at $38.48 billion. That's where the reserve, Nigeria's reserve, is at the moment. At a time when oil prices is about $120 for a barrel. That's sad. The naira fell 0.1% to 419 naira, 75 kobo to the dollar. That's, of course, in the INE window. In the parallel market, which is what is accessible to most Nigerians, is about 610, I think. And then it's appreciated by 0.7% to 606 naira at the parallel market. That was for last week. The INE window total turnover as of the 2nd of June increased by 115.3% week to date to $1.15 billion. Now let's look at other markets now. For instance, in the bonds market, activities in the Treasury bonds secondary market were mixed, albeit with a bullish tilt as the investors sustained their cherry picking of attractive instruments across the curve. That was the average yield across all instruments paired by 6 basis points. At the end of Friday, this is for Friday, there were 16 deals valued at 6.78 billion naira, and average yield contracted by in the short yield by 11 basis points. Mid, it's contracted by 7 basis points, and in the long, it's contracted by 3 basis points as investors demand the January to 2026, February 2028, and March 2036. Those were the most demanded by investors. Just before we take our guests, let's look at what happened at the Treasury bills. Bearish sentiments dominated that market last week. Secondary market, that's despite buoyant liquidity in the system. We attribute the performance to market participants selling off their positions amid scarce bids. Well, let's take the perspective of Senator Audu. Senator Audu is a fixed income dealer with Access Bank. He joins us now to give us an overview of happenings in the market last week, and I think we have some expectations. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Nini. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you. So it's mixed. We go from the fixed income to the treasury. I mean, from the bonds to the treasury. It's a mixed sentiment. But let's hear your perspective. How would you capture the activities in the market last week?
Okay, for last week, the market opened with thin liquidity. We saw market liquidity at low levels, but towards the tail end of the week, we saw the FAC inflow of just over 300 billion, about 305 billion hit the system. So we saw that bearish sentiment you referred to turn into a more bullish trend. Last week, in the fixed income market, we saw an OMO maturity of 65 billion on Tuesday. And given the FAC inflow that came in later in the week, we saw the CBN mop up that liquidity by way of an OMO auction. At the auction, the CBN offered 40 billion. We saw that offer on the short, medium, and long tenor maturities, 10 billion on the short, 10 billion on the medium, and 20 billion on the long end. Subscription for that auction was significant, about 338 billion, with the CBN sticking to its guns, selling exactly what was on offer, 40 billion. There were no surprises with regards to the stop rate. We saw the short-term maturity, the stop rate on that bill closed at 7%, no change. No change on the medium tenor bills as well, 8.5%, and the stop rate on the long end was maintained at 10.1%.
And then we're expecting an auction this week, yeah?
Yes, we are.
There's a CBN,
so there is no,
yeah.
Yeah, so this week there is no OMO maturity. The OMO maturity this month as a whole is very low. We have just 20 billion maturing. But on the NTB space, we have a maturity on Thursday, about 167 billion. So we will see the DMO, the Debt Management Office, conduct an NTB auction on Wednesday. The amount on offer is exactly what is maturing, 167 billion across the 192 and the 91, 182, and 364-day maturity. With regards to the stop rates, we saw. With regards to the stop rates, we saw stop rates go up at the last auction across all three maturities. So we might not see a similar hike this week, but we of course expect that there will be some movement in the stop rate.
All right, Senator. So we did see it. I don't know if you've seen that story that the federal government has suspended the bond sales. You know that it was expecting. Do we expect that to have any effects on the market this week?
Yes, true. So the Eurobond, we had been expecting an additional issuance by the DMO of Eurobonds, but that has been suspended now, and largely owing to pricing concerns. So we've seen recently Eurobonds for sub-Saharan African countries such as Nigeria and Ghana inch upwards. So issuing a Eurobond at this time could not be the best time, given that those yields are currently quite high in the secondary market. So coming into the market now to issue those bonds might not be the best move, given that the federal government might have to pay higher in terms of coupon, given those yields currently obtainable. With regards to your question regarding the effects on the secondary market, we've seen market players mostly price that in. So as I explained, we've seen those rates inch up was largely as a result of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, which has led to increased inflation in most countries and response by the monetary policy committees of those countries where they've taken up their benchmark rate. This has led to increased rates on securities in climes that are deemed a bit safer. So we've seen capital flight from countries such as Nigeria and Ghana, which has led to those yields going up. So we've seen most of that effect already priced in. So we don't expect any significant response in the market at this time.
Okay, so but now with this suspension of the sale of bonds, do we see any time when yields would taper for Nigeria to go back, to that sale of bond? Because eventually we're going to need the money. That's part of what we're using to fund our budget.
Definitely. So we might see the government look preferably more inwardly. So as I explained, there's an NTB auction this week. So we might see an over-allotment. So given that it's just 167 billion and not for my CDCBN decide to, the DMO rather, look inwards and borrow more locally rather than internationally. The rates locally are at very good levels. So the last auction, for example, closed at 6.49%, which is an attractive level, especially for local currency borrowing, given that our inflation is about 16.82%. So those are really good borrowing rates, and I would expect that the DMO would look locally to raise, to cover any gaps, any deficit in the budget.
All right, Senator Audu, fixed income dealer with Access Bank PLC. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us this morning. We certainly look forward to that auction on Wednesday. Welcome back. We head to London now, where at least 54 Conservative MPs have asked for a vote of confidence over Boris Johnson's premiership. I think that's the hottest news in the UK at this time. So we have Juliana joining us now from our studios in London. Good morning, Juliana. What are you guys talking about this?
Well, it's a huge story. As you said, yesterday, Prime Minister Boris Johnson, as he was watching the final stages of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee parade, he was informed by the chairman of the 1922 committee, Sir Graham Brady, that the threshold had actually been reached, that 54 MPs had put in letters of no confidence against the Prime Minister, which has triggered a vote which will take place in Parliament today. So between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m, Conservative MPs will vote on the future of the embattled leader, if he is going to lose his job to trigger a new leadership election, then more than 180 MPs will have to vote against him. It is a secret ballot, so there's a lot up in the air at the moment. Everybody knows that Prime Minister Boris Johnson is a very powerful politician, former mayor of London. He has won the greatest Conservative election since the late Margaret Thatcher, and to go against him, you have got to be pretty strong. But then all of the odds really are not in favour of the Prime Minister. He was in April fined £50 by the Metropolitan Police for breaking lockdown rules when he attended a gathering for his own birthday party in June 2020. Since the scathing report by Sue Gray, the senior veteran civil servant, was published a couple of weeks ago, it has just unearthed so many pretty horrendous images, lots of reports detailing that staff were abused, security guards having to break up fights, cleaners having to wipe off red wine from wallpaper, as well as mop up vomit. It just hasn't been good. We have had a string of pretty senior Tory MPs already putting out tweets of support for the Prime Minister, including Chancellor Rishi Sunak and the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss. But this is a secret ballot, and as we know, people can say one thing in your face, but what they do behind your back is another thing. However, we do know that the Prime Minister is not going to go down without a fight. Already suggestions that he has spoken to his pretty strong supporters this morning at 4 o'clock, just opposite the House of Commons in Portcullis House. He will be giving a pretty emotional speech to all Conservative MPs, basically begging for them not to vote against him. But we'll just have to wait and see. I think probably by about 9 or 10 o'clock this evening, we will have the result. But it is a very, 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 very important story, obviously, at the time when the country is going through a cost of living crisis.
Yes, Juliana, I mean, your emphasis on the very, 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 really tells us a story. And of course, the fact that it's going to be a secret ballot, that's also another one. But as we know, Boris Johnson, he will certainly put up a fight. And it's an interesting story that we're going to follow up. Now, this morning, you spoke to Ladi on Russian invasion, and you were en route at that time. I guess you were also caught up in this travel disruption that has caught a lot of people, kept a lot of people in the airports.
Yes, I did. As you can tell from my pretty dishevelled look this morning, it was raining and cold and, a train strike in London again. The RMT union not happy with the Transport Ministry. They've been fighting back and forth for the past couple of months. They say that their staff are not being treated the way they deserve to be treated because the Transport Ministry pumped in billions of pounds to try and help railways and train lines during the pandemic. They, of course, want to claw that money back, and it's led to a dispute. So we have had this train strike today. It started at 8 a.m. today. It will finish at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, but then there are more train strikes. In London, pretty much in a gridlock at the moment. The government have advised people to work at home. I didn't follow that advice, which is why I'm talking to you. But yeah, a pretty grey day in London today, after, of course, a pretty bright and delightful 4-day bank holiday weekend.
I guess they were waiting for the celebration to end before going on strike. But Juliana, thank you so much. We'll talk to you at 1:30 during Business Incorporated.
Thanks, Annie.
Let's head to the crypto space now. Well, when I mentioned Laddie earlier, it wasn't this Laddie.
Oh, yes, it wasn't this
It was the other Laddie. But this Laddie is waiting at the crypto space now. Yeah. Laddie, I hope you do have good news. I'm so tired of your red market.
It seems this Laddie has some good news, you know, for Monday. It's a green Monday, you know, but the market is still in extreme fear at 13 points, better than obviously 10 points we saw last week.
But still really low, Laddie.
Yeah, there's still extreme fear in this market. We cannot
we're
deny
very far
that
away from 50, which is just...
So far, and we touched that just, you know, a couple of months ago, but we've seen how, you know, the market has been rattled with different information flowing into the market at this point, with that stable coin becoming unstable. And we've seen all of that impact this market. We see the market cap at $1.28 trillion, up about 3.89%. Volume traded up 32%. And we see Bitcoin dominance sitting at 46.51%. That's been trending up for a while now. And the price of Bitcoin this morning, $31,151, up 4.82%. We see Bitcoin showing some resilience over the weekend, you know, coming back from that support of about 29,000 and still staying above 30K. Volume traded $24.18 billion. We see Ethereum there holding the $1,821 mark. It could also try to break that resistance at $2,000. Key eyes on that. The bulls are trying to get back to that level, but we see the bears are still, you know, pushing the price down. Volume traded $11.92 billion for the king of the altcoins. And we see top alts by market cap. It's BNB there, up 3.08%. Cardano there showing some resilience this morning, up 60 at 62 cents, up 10.33%. And we see it's mostly green on this counter, with XRP also struggling to stay afloat, this 40 cents. A couple of months ago, we're looking at 80 cents, but now we see XRP struggling to hold 40 cents at this time. And top 5 gainers there, we see Theta topping that counter up by 11.17%. And XTZ there, $2.10. So it's quite a green market we're seeing this Monday morning. Let's bring in Michael Enajin, our financial market analyst. Hello, Michael. Good morning.
Morning, Laddie. How are you?
I'm good.
Happy week.
We're happy Green Monday, and it seems the weekend wasn't so bad, you know, for the crypto market. But there's a lot of chatter, you know, about Coinbase and a couple of exchanges. We're seeing companies like Coinbase saying they're not looking to hire more staff at this time. We're seeing also talk about bankruptcy, you know, what happens. How is all of this going to impact the market? Is this what is expected in the bear market? Is this what we'll see every bear market?
Yes. So there is a fair bit of hesitation amongst crypto traders at the moment. On the stable coin front, you had UST Terra blow up. It was an algorithmic stable coin. And so after you had that implode, you had market participants have a moment where they realized that a lot of the profit needs to be basically removed from the crypto system. So that's why you've seen Tether have the most redemptions they've ever had. But this is something important that when it comes to crypto called counterparty risk. A lot of the times it's important in crypto to understand why Satoshi invented Bitcoin was to give people a way to store their assets without any man in the middle. And it's unfortunate that we've gone down the road of, as a community, we've gone down the road of trusting exchanges a little too much with our keys and now coins. Because as witnessed by what happened with Anchor Protocol and UST, you know, there's an article that just came out from Bloomberg, and it says Celsius, which is an exchange, was part of the reason why UST collapsed, because they were trying to manage their reserves. Because what a lot of these exchanges do is they promise high yields in order to entice users, and coupled that with high spending. And so you have an unsustainable, exchanges trying to win as many users as possible. But what happens in a bear market is you have very slim assets on your balance sheet. And so what happens is a lot of these companies overextend in the bull market. And so when it gets to the bear market and the Fed raises interest rates and easy money isn't there, it becomes clear to these companies that some of them will not survive. Their business model will not survive. And so that's why you're seeing all these exchanges make hiring freezes. And so people start questioning, hey, are my coins even safe with these exchanges? Because Celsius pulled out almost $500 million from UST before it collapsed. So a lot of these exchanges are putting money in funny places. And so, it's not hard to see, how they're one step away from losing a substantial amount of assets on the book and not having anyone to come in and bail them out. So it's one of those things when you see all the exchanges that you thought were the smartest and you thought were the best be exposed to something as big as UST, you imagine what else they have on their books. What else could give them a $500 million loss that we don't know of yet? And so, when we've had Mt. Gox, one of the largest exchanges in crypto, fail and collapse. And so it's not uncommon for big institutions in crypto to fail. The only thing is we don't have something like FDIC insurance where, you have some of your assets insured. So crypto is still truly like the Wild West. And, with all these layoffs and all these...
Still the Wild West.
Yeah, all these scary things coming up, like Celsius being people saying that they're going to be insolvent.
And that's why we're seeing the market still...
transactions.
Yeah, that's why we're seeing the market still in extreme... fear at this point. But if it all changes, then I'm sure we'll see, the exchanges will start hiring again and the good old days will come back. But let's see how that happens.
But the main thing is basically I would tell most people is just to learn how to store your own keys.
Right.
Remove yourself from counterparty risk, especially times like this. It's smart to put your money on exchanges when we're going up, not so smart when we're going down. You can wake up one morning and they say no more withdrawals.
Completely wiped out.
Then you're a creditor.
Wow, that's no trader wants to see that at this point. But now we're seeing the first weekly green candle in 3 months for Bitcoin. Is this going to continue, Michael?
I think 35K, and you're going to see Bitcoin at 20K by Q4.
Okay. All right, Michael, always good to hear from your crystal ball because it gets quite accurate. Thank you so much, Michael. We'll see how the market plays out this week. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. My pleasure, Led.
Okay, so looking at the top 5 gainers there, we see Theta there up about 11%, and Avax, Cardano trying to reach back to the glory days there. We see Elrond there down about 6.10% at top 5 losers. And we see Bitcoin Cash, one of the forks from Bitcoin, $185. It's down 1.43%. Quite a lean losers counter we're seeing this morning. So, you heard Michael. He still has quite a bleak outlook for the price of Bitcoin, but who knows? This market can be quite dynamic. And
one thing I like about Michael is that he doesn't mince words.
Oh, yeah,
he just says it as he sees it. In his crystal ball. So it's left for the market to now react to it. But thank you so much, Laddie. We do hope it will continue to be a green week, at least, so we can report good news to an extent. Thanks a lot, Laddie. We'll see you at 1:30 during Business Incorporated.
Yeah, we'll be drilling down more business conversations at that time.
Exactly. Well, that's where we draw the curtains on Business Morning today. Thank you so much for being a part of this very first episode. We have 4 more to go. Promises to be very relevant and very, very useful to you. So do stay here every morning, 10 a.m., and I will give you very relevant business conversations. Till tomorrow, I'm Imi John Mekwa.